today. The topic today is we're going to focus on how to decrease sales staff turnover, and by doing that you'll decrease a lot of the different costs that come with that. So hopefully if you signed up for this webinar, you are either in a sales management role, you're a business owner, you are responsible for hiring and managing a team of salespeople. That if you're in that capacity, you'll get the most out of this content here today. I want to start out by just telling you a little bit about myself. I typically try to do this at a minimum or avoid this, but since we're talking about a subject about, I think you need to understand where my thoughts on this subject come from, and so here's a little bit of details about my background. A lot of this experience and knowledge that I'm going to share with you was accrued or developed or fine-tuned really when I was building a business called Launchpad Solutions, which one of the core services we did is we provided outsourced appointment lead gen cold calling, appointment setting. So I had a team of cold callers, you could call them, and I was the one responsible for doing the recruiting, the interviewing, the training, the day-to-day management, and really ultimately in charge of retaining those resources. That was a really challenging task for me because people don't really enjoy cold calling. It's a very difficult sales activity to do. So it was a real challenge from a staffing standpoint, and in that business you live and die by your ability to keep resources as long as you can, because the longer I have a cold caller, the more they're familiar with my methodology, or the more they're familiar with a client that they're working for, the better results we're going to deliver. So if I have a high level of turnover, I'm going on the employee side, I'm not going to be delivering as good of a service. So I had to figure out a way to basically decrease sales staff turnover, the topic here today. Along the way, a lot of those principles in terms of training I put into a book called The Cold Calling Equation. So that's available on Amazon. And then through this, I've also become involved in the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. Actually, before all those things that I just mentioned to you, I actually went through a formal coach training program, which is a program designed for professional executive coaching. So I know a lot about coaching individuals at a professional level, and I've always incorporated a lot of those principles into how I manage resources. So a lot of that will be peppered throughout the topics here today and the tips here today. So just want to put that out there. Let's just get right to it. And I want to start out really by talking about the actual cost of turnover, the cost of sales staff turnover on you, on your bottom line, on your company, and just kind of go through these, because you may be, there could be one of these that you're not aware of, or you might be aware of all these costs, but maybe some people that you report to, whether that is an executive team or shareholders or whatnot, they might not be aware of all these costs. It is extremely costly when salespeople leave your organization prematurely. In fact, I shouldn't even say prematurely. If you have to get rid of an employee, that's a very costly event. And the reason why is because in order to replace that employee, you have recruiting expenses. This, in many cases, looks like you actually hiring a recruiter and then paying anywhere between a certain percentage of the new hire's salary to that recruiter. Recruiting expenses can be very high, as you know. You may be a company that doesn't use outside recruiters, and you might maybe do the recruiting yourself. Well, you know what? That's extremely costly, because that's your valuable time that you are taking away from selling or managing your salespeople to looking at resumes and interviewing. Extremely costly on all different levels. There's also training expenses. You know, when you hire someone new, you're going to have to put them through usually a formal training program, and that can be very expensive. But it doesn't just end there from a training standpoint. Even once that employee goes through any new hire training or any formal training, they're still going to go to their peers and ask their peers questions. So you will always have a level of peer training that is very informal, and you might not even know when it exists. And when that happens, you're taking an experienced salesperson away from selling, and that is very costly. That means that they will not be, that they're taking their eye off of generating revenue for your company. The big one here is that deals are lost. When a salesperson leaves your organization, there might be opportunities in the pipeline that they have intimate knowledge of, and when they leave, you are at a much lesser position to close those deals. So deals might be lost when they leave, because deals that they were working on. But let's look one step beyond that. Let's say that position is open while you're interviewing. Think about all the deals that are missed when there's a salesperson not fully working that area, that territory. These are deals that you don't even know about. You might know about the deals that are lost that didn't come in, that were on the radar. There's deals that you don't even know about that you lose because there's no one in that position. So that's a tremendous opportunity cost. Another thing that can happen is accounts can be taken to your competition when your rep leaves your company, goes to another company. Think about all the valuable knowledge that walks out the door when a salesperson leaves. And there's a lot of different types. All that knowledge that you've invested in by teaching them about your company, you spent a lot of money teaching and training and ramping up that salesperson, walks out the door. And you know what? All that valuable knowledge about your company, your products, your processes, often that goes to the competition. Think about how costly that is. There's intimate knowledge of your current customer base. If you have a salesperson leave and they're currently involved in a number of deals or existing customers, think about how much knowledge that rep has that is then walking out the door. Hopefully you're putting tools in place like a CRM that your salespeople can put that data in there so that when they leave, you are able to retain that information. But even if someone does that with a very thorough level of thoroughness, there's often a lot of knowledge that walks out the door, and that's extremely costly. When you add up all of these and other areas, tremendous valuable time spent and lost. And for one person in particular, that's typically you, there's a lot of time that is spent and lost. I mean, think about all the interviewing you have to do to replace somebody. That is extremely costly, and usually if you're on this call and you're at a management level, you're the one that's having to do some level of interviewing. Another thing I want to say on this is that the interesting thing about most of these is that these costs do not show up on any financial reports. If you spend time interviewing and recruiting, that cost, your hourly cost, and taking your eye off the ball of sales does not show up anywhere. Deals that are lost, the deals that don't even get onto your radar when a position is open, those don't show up on any report. So what I'm trying to say there is that this is an extremely costly area, and a lot of companies don't even know how costly it is. You may, but your shareholders or your senior management might not. So just want to get that out of the way. Those are all the things that we are going to impact and improve by decreasing sales staff turnover. And in order to figure out how to decrease turnover, let's look at what causes turnover. And there's actually two types of turnover. One is voluntary turnover, and that's what we call when someone voluntarily leaves an organization. And so the causes some of the main causes of voluntary turnover are that the person that leaves, they're not making enough money. They don't have enough career growth. So maybe their level of W-2 is okay, but they don't see a way to get that level of income to increase, or their level of seniority to grow. At a most basic level, they might not be happy for a variety of reasons. They might not be developing and improving, be gaining more skills, gaining more knowledge, gaining more responsibility. They might not be getting the recognition from you or from internal leaders of the organization. And that could either be monetary, recognition or just verbal recognition. They don't like the manager. You know, they don't like the person they report to. That happens in the world we live in. They chose the wrong job. You know, they interviewed, they accepted the position, they got put in the job, and you know what? It really wasn't what they were looking for. That happens. And when that happens, something that's going to follow that soon after is that they're going to leave. They're going to go find something that fits better. Another reason why sometimes people leave is they don't know what to do. They're in a job, and especially in sales, it can be easy for a salesperson to be thrown in a situation, and at the most basic level, they don't know how to be successful. And the reason why this is common in sales is, you know, if you're an accountant, you know exactly what you need to do. If you are a HR manager, you know what you need to do. If you're a salesperson, you're often put in a situation where you need to sell, and you don't know what to do in order to be successful, in order to meet your target. So when that happens, you might voluntarily leave because you're not happy, and you don't want to be somewhere where you don't know what to do. Moving on, the other category of turnover is involuntary turnover. This is when someone is forced to leave an organization by termination. And some reasons that some things that can cause and lead to that is at the most basic level, probably the most common one for a salesperson, is they are not performing well, right? They have a pattern of not meeting their targets, and they also might not be developing and improving in the eyes of the manager. You know, they came out of new hire training and they've plateaued out. They haven't gone to that next level, so they might need to leave the organization. They're hard to work with. You know, they are a salesperson who is not following direction or orders. Maybe you hired the wrong person. Just as a salesperson could choose the wrong job, you could choose the wrong person. And at the end of the day, they might not be doing the right things. And so that could be a variety of things. But you know, if someone's not following direction and not doing the right things, if there's a pattern of that along with other stuff, they're not performing well, they might need to be terminated. But so if we can agree that those are all reasons why people either leave or are asked to leave, and there might be a few others that we could add to this list, but if you agree with those being the causes, then our goal here today with the topic here today is how to decrease sales staff turnover. So if these are the causes, then at a most simple level, if we find a way to decrease these root causes, then we can decrease the symptoms, the symptom that that these causes create, and that symptom is turnover, people leaving the organization. So I just want to point out, you know, we're going to go through a lot of different things that can be done to directly address these different causes. There's not really going to be like a magic pill that we're going to share with you here today that you can install in your organization and everything is that much better. It's more like us sharing a recipe with you. So like if you went out to a restaurant, maybe an Italian restaurant, and you had a fantastic New York style Italian piece of dish, lasagna, spaghetti, whatever, and it tasted great. If you look at the recipe book for that dish, it's all ingredients that you've heard of before. You know, ground beef, pasta, tomatoes, olive oil, seasoning. You're not going to read that recipe and see anything that was just magical, right? But the way that it's all put together and put together in just the right amount and all the ingredients included, and the end result is a fantastic dish. And that's similar to what we're going to share with you here today. We're going to go through the ingredients that can lead to you having a better organization that retains salespeople. And I just say that because you're going to hear a lot of stuff that you either know about or you have already. And what I would expect for you to do with this is look for the things that you're not doing today and treat this like a checklist and look for the small things that you can add. And these are easy things for you to add to your organization and see an immediate result. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that you're not going to hear some revolutionary stuff here today that you've never heard of before. The good news is you're going to hear a list of stuff that you can implement tomorrow. and create positive impacts on your organization. That being the case, let's just go through these. And like I said, if you have any questions, add those to the chat window. We can address them either one at a time or at the end. But really, honestly, the most important area to decreasing sales staff turnover is focusing on your recruiting and your interviewing. And just to go back to my experience, when I hired telesales resources, to be honest with you, I probably did not spend enough time really asking the right questions. And so someone would appear to look good on the resume, and I would make a pretty quick pull on the trigger. The reason why is because I saw these as fairly low-level positions, someone just on the front lines on the phones, and my turnover was at a higher level than I wanted it to be. I'd have some people that would quit after a week or two, and we would spend valuable money training that individual. And so what I realized real quickly is that it was extremely important for me to ask the right questions in that valuable time that I had with that applicant during the interview. And it was all on my shoulders. I mean, they're not gonna tell me exactly what I need to know without me asking the questions. So I'm not going to teach you about recruiting and interviewing in this presentation, but what I would say is it's all about asking the right questions. And I want to just share with you one thing that I kind of figured out on my own is that I identified the characteristics of the type of employee that I think would be successful in the role that I was hiring. In the example I shared with you was telesales people. So I listed out the characteristics. Someone that communicates well, has the ability to learn, is loyal, is going to be able to persevere in stressful situations, is able to communicate well, needs to earn an income but not earn too much of an income because it's not a high-paying position, and so on. So I list out these characteristics, and one thing that I did is I would create 2 to 3 questions for each characteristic, and that became the basis of my interview questions to screen people. And so that helped me to really filter out the people that did not fit well. So that's just something that I did. And like I said, so anyways, if you're able to screen better on the front end, what that'll help the turnover causes that helps you to mitigate is that helps you to minimize the applicants choosing the wrong job. To be honest with you, I think this is something that a lot of people do, or one step that you can go. The last bullet here on the slide says, identify that they want to make that what they want matches with the position that you offer. I think this is something that I've experienced in interviews. Is that when someone interviews me, they're focused more on figuring out if I'm what they're looking for, right? And if I am, then they give me the job. But what is important is to figure out if you are what they are looking for. And so I think that's something that can help to minimize the applicant choosing wrongly to pursue your position. And then if you screen harder, then you can decrease the chances of you hiring the wrong person. Pretty basic stuff there, I know, extremely important though. Of course, once you get new sales hires into your organization, you need to focus on sales training and having some sort of onboarding process, providing sales training to your resources. Many of you probably have this. You have some sort of sales training in place for new hires. If you don't, it's extremely important, no-brainer there, right? One thing that I do know that from experience, most onboarding sales training programs usually involve a couple key things. One is they focus on, here's the product that you're going to sell, and then typically here are some of our internal systems and processes. Maybe here's a little bit of sales methodology training that we use. And that's typically your standard new hire training. And that's all good stuff. One thing that was missing from that, I know I went through that pretty quickly, but I'll just tell you what's missing, is that most training programs do not tell a salesperson what to say and ask when they pick up the phone. If you teach someone on the product that you sell, that doesn't give the person what they need to say and ask when they pick up the phone for the very first time to call a completely cold prospect. That might give them the knowledge they need to call an existing customer or an extremely warm prospect. But when you're doing cold calling or cold sales prospecting, you're not at a point yet where you can talk about your products. So I think that's something that's missing from sales training, and my advice to you would be because if a salesperson doesn't have that, what they do is they learn on the job and they learn through trial and error, and over a period of months they finally figure out what to say and ask. Well, if you can skip that and really get them the key questions that they need to ask and the key points to say and the key responses to objections, you can drastically shorten the new hire ramp-up time. And so in order to do that, you can provide tools like scripts. You can do role-playing. Role-playing is an extremely powerful sales training tool. And so those are some great things to do for new hires, but it's also important for you to provide training on an ongoing basis to sales resources. And so this can be sales skills training. It could be continual training about products and whatnot. And the most important thing with sales training is for you at management to reinforce that training on an ongoing basis. When an employee goes through a training program, they're only going to retain about 20 to 30% of that training program. That's with any training program. And so a lot of it gets lost. And then if you don't reinforce that training, it goes down to like 2 to 5% is retained. And typically the salesperson then just goes back to their old ways. So it's really important for you. So if the sales training program teaches some sort of methodology or tactics or tools or terminology, incorporate all that in how you manage the resource on an ongoing basis, and that will help you to get the best ROI out of your sales training. So if you do all that, you know what this is going to do? It's going to help to decrease employees not being happy because they're going to be more comfortable in their job. They're going to know what to do better. And if they know what to do better, they're going to be making more money. They're going to be performing better. They're going, like I said, they're going to know what to do. They're going to decrease the probability of them not doing the right things. They're going to feel like they chose the right job. And it's not that they're going to feel like they chose the right job. It's that they're not going to feel like they chose the wrong job. Because if you don't do these things, they're going to be stressed. They're going to be stressed. There's going to be anxiety, and so that can cause the person to feel like, you know what, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be in this role, and it's going to make them feel. It's going to make you feel like you hired the right person, and they're going to continue to develop and improve. Sales coaching is something different from sales training, and this is something that can definitely help with your turnover, and it's basically providing one-to-one basically interactions coaching with your employees. This could be something that you provide directly, and what I have here on the slide, informal sales coaching, which kind of means a sales manager being somewhat of a coach to their salesperson and doing things like identifying challenges and opportunities, action planning, progress tracking, role playing. Those are all really powerful things. You can also do formal sales coaching, which in some ways looks like bringing in a coach from the outside or having someone internal that's specifically in the role of being a sales coach. That's more powerful for a couple reasons. One is being a coach is a skill, and if you're a sales manager, you might either not have it been developed, you might not have been trained on that skill, or you don't focus on it enough to be good at it. So having an outside coach can provide a more effective sales coach, and it also can provide an employee, a salesperson, a safer place to talk about challenges and concerns because they might not share those with you if you're the person they report to. So if you provide sales coaching on an ongoing basis, this can help to make employees happier and decrease them not being happy. It can help them to make more money. It can help them to perform better. It can help them to know what to do. It can help them to do the right things because you're coaching them. You're there by their side, or someone is, and they're helping them to figure out the right things to do. It can make them feel like to decrease the feeling like they chose the wrong job. It can make you feel like you hired the right person, and can help definitely sales resources to continue to develop and improve. The question you might want to look at is, are you providing all the right sales tools you need to your salespeople? Meaning, you know, on a far extreme, picture a salesperson being hired and being given a phone book, right, and a phone, right, and a laptop, right. That's the bare minimum. And if someone just has those basic items, it's going to be their effectiveness and their efficiency is going to be really limited, right? Think on the other side of the spectrum, where you provide all sorts of technology and tools, and that really can have a great impact. And so, just to talk about a few, you know, do you have a CRM in place for your employees? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't, you definitely need some sort of tool for sales resources to log their notes and to manage information, to schedule reminder items, to just manage a whole sales process, to have visibility on what's going on. My company uses Sales Nexus, one of the Sales Growth Hub partners. So it's a really good platform. I highly recommend them. The next thing that you might want to look at is, are you providing any sort of email marketing tools for your salespeople? So making it easy for them to blast out mass emails and communicate out to their prospects. Again, the thing I like about Sales Nexus is that it actually has CRM and email marketing built together. That's why I actually chose them. So that's a recommendation there. You might want to look at. But another thing that you can provide your salespeople are tools around sales scripts, or tools that help them figure out how to respond to prospects, or what to say. I've seen different things working with different companies. Some companies have flipboards. Some companies provide scripts. Some companies have tools that get put on a cube wall. But at the most basic level, the more scripts and tools you provide that can help salespeople figure out what to say, that can greatly improve results. Automation tools, anything that you can use that helps you to automate what your salespeople do, allowing them to sell more, can be greatly beneficial. I won't go into detail about it, but I recently subscribed to a tool that allows me to do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn automatically, so I can do it in the back. I can run it in the background while I do other stuff. So always look at anything like that. You typically can get a really positive return on investment for that, and anything else I mentioned. The last thing I want to mention here are prospect lists. I mean, are you giving your sales resources a territory and then kind of saying, all right, go find the business, or where they don't know who to call, or are you providing them with resources that have contacts and phone numbers and email addresses? I mean, it's a lot easier to get into a company and to know who to call, or to generate a lead if you know who to call. One last recommendation here is Lead Ferret, which was mentioned earlier in this presentation. I actually use Lead Ferret. It's a contact database service where you can pull a search for a particular area, a particular title, and get a list of contacts, prospects with phone number, email address. You can download a list, so I highly recommend that. But if you provide tools like this, you're going to decrease the issue of prospects feeling like they're not making enough money. You know why? Because they're going to be more successful with the more you arm them with stuff like this. If they're more successful, they're not going to have that feeling like, you know what, I'm not making enough money here. They're going to be performing better, so you're not going to feel the need that you have to get rid of them. I mentioned here that they're going to feel less likely that they don't know what to do, and that comes from them having the tools of the scripts. You know, if somebody doesn't have a script, they're going to feel a little lost, and you can decrease that, and so on. So, on the subject of scripts, I actually have a company called Sales Scripter, so I wouldn't be fair to myself or you if I didn't have a slide specifically on this subject. It's an area that I'm fairly passionate about, and I feel like there's actually a lot of negative impressions or about scripts in in the world of managing salespeople. Some people see them as a negative, that they're for junior salespeople, or that that salespeople sound like robots if they use scripts. I'm more of a advocate for performing better through preparation, and preparation comes with having a script and having a guide to work from when you're making calls and when you're meeting with prospects. So at a most basic level, I think that if you have a salesperson that's on the phone, they should have some sort of guide, call outline, cold call script. They don't have to read directly from it, but something that they either look at before they make the call or they can look to when they're on the call. A lot of people that say, well, I don't like using a cold call script, the thing that I always ask them is, do you have a list of pre-qualifying questions? And I would consider this a sales script, a bulleted list of questions. If you do nothing else but give your salespeople the right pre-qualifying questions, you will immediately improve their results, because a good salesperson is the one that asks the right questions, and this list of pre-qualifying questions is what can give a salesperson the right questions to ask. Objection responses. Your salespeople are going to run into the same objections again and again, and help to prepare them. Give them responses for those common objections. There's only about 10 objections that you need to prepare your salespeople for, so it's really easy. Give them those responses. Email templates. Your salespeople are going to run into the same email situations again and again. They're sending an email before they talk to someone to try to get a meeting. They need to send an email after they briefly speak to someone. They need to send an email after they leave a voicemail. These are all the same scenarios. So what you can do is you can create templates so that you don't have salespeople writing out those emails again and again. What that is that's a great time saver, and the more time you save for your salespeople doing that type of stuff, the more time they can spend on selling. Voicemail scripts, that's something else that you can give them as well. So just a plug for myself, I actually have a solution called Sales Scripter. You can just answer a few questions in Sales Scripter, and it fills out all of these things that I just showed you and a bunch more, so you might want to check that out. But by giving your salespeople all these things and scripts, you can decrease them from not being happy. Imagine a salesperson that has an extremely high level of anxiety, and they're afraid to pick up the phone because they don't know what to say. You turn that over to someone who knows exactly what to say and ask. That's someone who is confident. Someone who's confident doesn't have all that stress and anxiety, and that can decrease them not being happy. You can make them perform better, so you can decrease them not making enough money. You can take them to where they know what to do, to where they're doing the right things, to where they don't feel like they chose the wrong job, to where you don't feel like you hired the wrong person, and to where they're continuing to develop and continuing to improve. So some big impacts there on turnover, as with everything else. Some changes you can make outside of the area of your salespeople that we're talking about. Are you providing them with the air support from a marketing standpoint? These are things that you do at a marketing level, at a corporate level, at a company level, but are you doing search engine optimization, driving traffic to your website, internet marketing, pay-per-click advertising, email marketing? These are all things that can generate leads, inbound leads. In terms of outbound leads, something that can be done is having an outbound lead generation project. So this could either be an internal organization that is specifically people that do outbound cold calling to generate leads, or you could outsource that to a company. A member of the Sales Growth Hub is a company that I recommend a lot called Pro Sales Connection. They're basically specialists in outbound appointment setting, cold calling, sales outsourcing. So they're good. Hiring a company like that is really good because, well, actually, let me give you an example. Let me get through this list. I'll give you an example why that is good. Do you have a good-looking website? I've worked with clients who spend all this money generating leads, and they drive those leads and they have a bad-looking website. So that's not, if someone gets an appointment and gets a meeting, but then your website looks bad and that hurts your credibility, then that's not very good. Are you attending events at a corporate level or sending your salespeople to events in terms of trade shows, conferences, whatnot, and as well as any PR? So just want to go back and give you an example. One of my previous jobs, I was a field salesperson for a software company, and we had a good-looking website, but the company didn't do a lot of these other things like internet marketing or outbound lead generation. So I was a fully loaded salesperson, a near six-figure base and whatnot, and I was doing true cold calling. I mean, cold calling to companies that had never heard of us, right? So that was really expensive for that company, having someone with six figures doing cold calling. Now, I'm not to say I shouldn't ever pick up the phone, but the cold calling can be very grinding, and it's something that you can have someone that makes a lot less money do. And so that's something that you can do with outbound outsourcing, as well as I didn't have any of this air support, and I didn't have a lot of inbound leads coming in. When you do these things, your salesperson can be a lot more successful because they have a lot of really good qualified leads to work off of, and that can help to make salespeople happier. They can be happier because they're making more money. They're performing better. They feel like they know what to do because they're working on good leads as opposed to just being out there working on cold lists, and so on. So very important there. Okay, just checking the time real quick. Day-to-day management. I'm not going to give you a lesson here on how to manage people. What I want to do is I want to go through a list of words, and you can take from them whatever you want. But I think that these are some of the qualities, these are some things that you can incorporate in terms and have a positive impact on your level of turnover. But having clarity and direction in terms of when you manage a resource, giving them clear direction on what to do in terms of this is who you need to call, this is what you need to focus on. Making them accountable, accountable to their actions, accountable to what they need to get done. And so autonomy. I think autonomy, leaving your salespeople alone to do what they do best and giving them some space is really important. And that's kind of, let's say, the opposite of being a micromanager. But the first two things are really important in order to do this. Giving clear direction and then giving accountability. When you do those, that's when you can provide autonomy. If you don't tell someone exactly what to do and then make them accountable, that's when you need to be a micromanager. So continuing through the list, empowering your employees, providing consistency in terms of handling things the same way for multiple people on the team and for different situations. Being fair. I've worked in situations where comp plans were changed or rules were changed or people were treated unfairly. So being as fair as possible, servant leadership, serving those that report into you is really a powerful thing. Encouragement, reward and recognition, and the next on the list is enforcement and constructive criticism. So I'm definitely a firm believer in a carrot and a stick. There's nothing wrong with the stick, but you got to use the carrot when something's done right. It can't be a carrot only all the time without the stick. So I think there's nothing wrong with either of those. It becomes wrong when you only do one or one without the other. Action planning, progress tracking, and open channel communication. It's important for your employees to feel like they can come and communicate to you if they have a concern, if they need help. Having really an open door policy. It's not that anybody typically has a closed door policy, but you can create an environment where your employees don't feel like there is an open door, and so there's a difference there. And always just focusing on seeing your employees as a resource, always trying to teach and develop them. And so when you do some or all of these things, you can help to decrease all of the causes that we've already gone through, really almost everything on the list. You can help to improve with that. Designing your salespeople territories. So you probably, if you can have territories for your salespeople, you probably already have them in terms of, but you may have salespeople that have wide open territories, and I personally believe it's good to have some sort of defined lines between reps. It can create headaches with competitiveness or account stealing. It can also create some equity. A person owns that territory, takes a little bit more pride. One thing that I think is important, though, is that we can often give really large territories to salespeople, especially if you're working in a small company. So your salesperson might have a really long list of accounts that they are responsible for, or a big geographic territory. I'm based in Houston, so I've worked for a lot of companies that have had a territory called TOLA, which is Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And that's a big territory, regardless of what you sell. A lot of geography there, a lot of businesses, a lot of prospects. So what I recommend is if you have a resource that has a big territory, try to create a tighter focus or tight areas of concentration. For example, if I had a rep that had TOLA, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas, I might say this is your territory, but what I want you to focus on as you get going is I want you to focus on Houston and Dallas. That's it. You have TOLA, and if something comes in from outside of those, we're going to work it. But if you're doing outbound prospecting, I want you to just focus on these tight areas. And so I think that gives salespeople a little bit more focus. It gives them a little bit more ownership, a little bit more clarity. And I personally believe that instead of being a foot deep and a mile wide, you can be more successful if you're a mile deep and a foot wide. So that's just something that I would say when you're in terms of how you design your territories for your reps. The other thing is provide clarity around the key target that your salespeople are going after in terms of what does an ideal prospect look like, right? So instead of just giving your salespeople a territory of you have this geography and you have businesses from 150 employees to 2,500 employees, in the manufacturing industry, or let's say you give them that range of employee or revenue, and they can go after anybody. Help them to have clarity around what industries that you fit best with, what customer problems, prospect problems and pains you help to resolve. Give them that clarity of what the ideal prospect looks like from a current process, current environment, current organizational structure. When it's sort of like a detective with a character, with a hand-drawn sketch of a suspect. Think of a detective without that drawn picture and then versus one with the drawn picture. The one with the picture is going to find the suspect a lot quicker than the one without. Your salespeople are like detectives. They're out there trying to find the prospects that fit well. Give them a picture of what your ideal prospect looks like. And I know that that's not being done because I've worked for a lot of companies and they don't, and I've never really been provided that. So just going back again to being fair and consistent. And so doing some of those things can help with happiness, performance, knowing what to do. It can also help with the resource liking the manager because it can decrease situations where someone feels treated unfairly. Something that we actually didn't talk about there is, there can sometimes be poaching across territory lines. So being really consistent and fair with how deals are paid and awarded can really help decrease any chances of someone not liking their manager and leaving because not being treated fairly in terms of compensation, which is the next slide here, compensation structures. So pretty routine stuff here. Maybe some of this is a no-brainer. But aligning compensation plans with the desired outcomes. I've worked for sales jobs where I had a big quota and the things that I was doing as a salesperson were not really impacting that quota. I either ended up getting paid or I ended up not getting paid, and what I was assigned to do really wasn't impacting that. So just really aligning those things, remembering we're coin operated, us as people. So if you want your salespeople to perform a certain way to achieve a certain thing, just simply align their compensation structure with those desired outcomes. Making the compensation and targets focused on something that the salesperson can control and can impact. Something that can help is breaking down targets and objectives so as much as possible. So instead of just giving a huge annual number, maybe breaking down to quarterly quotas, you could instead of just giving a revenue quota, you could have a quota for meetings, calls made, activities, presentations given, proposals delivered. And the most important thing here, I think, is just making all of those targets that you're trying to drive towards realistic and achievable. I mean, you know, we all want to be successful, and I think all salespeople know that they need to work, and we know ultimately we all like sort of driving towards some sort of goal. But if your targets and quotas are just crazy numbers, you know, we can feel like someone on a treadmill where we're spinning our tires and not making any progress. So just really having realistic and achievable targets can really help from a turnover standpoint. And so all of that can really help with your reps being happier, making more money, performing better, knowing what to do, doing the right things, feeling like they're in the right job. When they're getting paid, they feel like they're getting the recognition that they deserve. Getting down to the wire here on the last few things, but this last slide is professional and personal development. So just always being aware that typically the people that you hire, especially when they're salespeople, they're going to be driven to want to grow financially, emotionally, professionally. So be aware of that and try to feed into that as you can. Some things that you can do is you can have visible paths for professional development, meaning if I'm in this role, I know that if I'm successful, I can progress to this role and maybe that role. And it's sort of like that, not the immediate carrot, but the long-term carrot. And when just knowing that I can grow in the organization can keep me in the organization. And so you might look at your current organization and say, well, I don't really know how I could do that. Maybe you could make changes in terms of how you design the organization so that there are different levels that an employee can progress to. You might have an organization now where you just have employees, and then you have managers or a manager. And there's really, you know, odds are that not every employee is going to go to that manager position. Well, maybe you can create some levels between those. Sometimes there's a team lead, or there's a supervisor, or a mentor, or a trainer, you know, and so you can create these other positions that reward someone who's been around. And you might know that this person will probably never be a manager, but you know, if you at least stick them in the senior role where they have a little bit more responsibility, they can feel like they're developing, and they are developing, and you're giving them something they can put on their resume, and you know that can help them to stay with your organization longer. Communicating progress when it's achieved and areas of improvement when they're needed. And you know, supporting personal development, so that might be like someone going back to school or being involved in a community organization or whatnot. I think that's important. I think the professional development is the top priority here, but once you have that in place and you're supporting that, you can continue on to support personal development as well, and that helps to decrease turnover a lot. This is the last slide, and I'll just talk about it for 1 second and say that if you do most of what else we talked about already, you're going to impact the culture of your organization. But you can try to create a fun, work hard, play hard, consistent, fair, honest, challenging organization, and that can help you to improve your turnover. I'm going to wrap up because we got about 5 minutes. Just some key takeaways here. Probably the biggest way to impact turnover is to spend more time and attention on the front end, making sure you pick the right people. I think that all of us kind of sort of don't take that seriously enough, and that's really where we run into problems. Focusing on training and tools around teaching your employees what to say and ask when they're prospecting can lead to bigger results. That's something that we help out with at Sales Scripter. Provide coaching, sales tools, marketing support. Focus on little changes with day-to-day management, territories, and compensation, and build an environment that fosters growth and recognizes performance and results. So if you like what you've heard here today, you want more help, I've written a number of books. Some of these are ebooks, and you can get these all on salesscripter.com. There's also dozens of videos and slide decks on SalesScripter, as well as this video will be posted on the Sales Growth Hub with these slides. So what we showed you is kind of a recipe type level of information, so I'd encourage you to download this slide deck, and so you can do that from the Sales Growth Hub. We do offer sales training programs, one-on-one sales coaching and consulting, so if you need more help, here's my contact info. Email me directly. There's my Twitter handle as well. Craig, do we have any questions?
Yeah, in fact, there have been a handful, all kind of with the same theme. Basically, a lot of questions about providing the salesperson with prospect lists and with leads. Just any suggestions you have about where to start looking for leads, building prospect lists, best ways to hand salespeople leads.
Yeah, I mean, so we mentioned Lead Ferret. So the first place I would go if I were you is to leadferret.com, and you can open an account, I believe, for free. It's a really great tool. You can basically put all the demographics of the prospects that you're looking for, either a geography or a SIC code, company size, and you get a prospect list immediately. The way that their service works is you could click on one contact at a time for free and actually get a phone number. So, but if you want to download a full list and turn that into like a prospect list, then you can sign up, and I think you buy points, and it's a point per contact. So definitely check out Lead Ferret. Anything else?
No, like I say, there were a whole bunch of questions kind of around that same subject, so that's good. Thank you.
All right. Well, like I said, our next webinar is in just a couple weeks, so if you want to join us for that, we're going to be really talking about inside sales scripting, and you can register for that on the salesgrowthhub.com. If any questions come up after this presentation, feel free to email me directly, and I would be glad to answer those. And if you have any right now, we'd be glad to go through them. Other than that, thank you for attending, and make it a great 2015.